see. These. You ready? Oh, you ready?
Yes, ready when you are.
This Kerrville Planning and Zoning meeting at 4:03. First thing we have on the agenda today is item 1A, approval of the minutes from the February 6th meeting. I reviewed the adjusted minutes. Does anybody have anything they need corrected on there?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second on the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, we'll move on to 2A. Approval of Windridge Unit 1 final plat. You want to take us into that, Drew?
Yes, sir. This is the Windridge final plat. Here's a portion of it. Doesn't fit on one page, but this is consistent with the preliminary plat that you saw several months ago. They're moving forward with their civil infrastructure plans and got those approved. We changed the formatting a little bit of the conditions for you guys and for the applicant. So this is a little more of a to-do list than you're used to seeing before they go to their next phase. So these are all standard procedure within the code, but they do need to complete these items before recording of the final plat. And then before submitting any building permits, of course, they still have to record the plat, address is assigned, and completion of all the civil infrastructure for fire safety, and confirm that Travis Booster Station has capacity for Windridge Unit 1 for the domestic water service. The staff recommends approval of this plat with these conditions, and these will be reviewed by staff on the final submittal.
So before I open the public hearing, basically what you're doing is these are the requirements you guys want completed before they approve this final plat.
Before they can record.
They're not changing anything.
Correct. No changes. These are standard procedure.
Okay.
But that way, when the applicant gets the approval from the planning commission with these conditions, they kind of have a checklist of what to do for recording.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing.
Plats don't require a public hearing.
Go ahead.
This isn't a public hearing. We have two that don't have a public hearing.
Oh, this one doesn't?
Yep.
No,
No, the
Okay.
plats don't require a
correct,
public hearing.
you're right. So now we'll go on to 2B.
Still need a motion and approval.
I'll move to approve
yeah,
with
I'm
the
sorry.
conditions.
We have a second on the
I'll
motion?
second.
All right, we have a motion, a second, all in favor, raise your hand. And we'll move on to 2B.
This is the final plat, or excuse me, this is the preliminary plat for 2B. So when Lennar purchased the land from Shriner, they had two separate purchase agreements. So the preliminary plat that you previously approved was just for that first unit. This will be the second unit. Again, does not fit on one page, but you can see here how it ties in with the rest of the development. I've got several different phases that they still need to go through, so conditions for the preliminary plat, prior to submitting civil construction plans, they get their adequate facilities plan approved, which that's under review with engineering, and coordinate with fire for any remaining emergency access. Since the way this project is being phased, they have to go through and make sure they've got fire access and emergency access as needed as they go through that. Prior to final plat, get approval of their civil construction plans, then the steps for final recording of the final plat, and then prior to building permits. The staff recommends approval of this preliminary plat with these conditions.
Any questions on this before we consider the motion on this? If there are no questions, I will entertain a motion of approval of the preliminary plat on 2B.
Move to approve with these conditions.
We have a motion to approve with the conditions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, 2B. Now we're going to move into the public hearing section. We'll move on to 3A.
Okay, this is an ordinance to change the zoning from R1A, single-family residential with accessory dwelling unit, to C1 Neighborhood Commercial to accommodate proposed bodega with a residential dwelling unit on Parsons Block 14, parts of Lot 49, 50, and 51, more commonly known as 620 Webster Avenue. And is the applicant here?
Yes.
Yes, there you are. If you want
Uh,
to give your introduction to the case.
I'm Carlotta Woodfox, the owner of 620 Webster, and I'm trying to open up a community bodega. If you want to look at it so you can get an idea of what it's about, you can. You want it?
I think we got,
Oh, you got, okay.
we get,
I
which,
don't think we got that.
maybe we
You
didn't.
didn't get this, okay. So have an idea of what I'm trying to do. And it also will help the community, you know, the changes, upgrade the community. For the 2050, I may not live to see it, but I'm trying.
Good, girl.
Good luck.
I'm trying. So, yeah, and I have someone here would they like to speak on my behalf.
We'll do that when we
Okay.
open the public
Okay.
hearing. Yes,
So am
ma'am.
I good now?
You're good, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you. So I will open the public hearing on this.
You want staff report first or after?
Yeah, you want to go ahead and do that before we
Okay.
open it?
It's currently zoned R1A as the surrounding area. To the northwest is a parcel that's zoned mixed use. It was going to be a proposed restaurant with the old structure that was there. That project has not come to fruition in several years, but it is still zoned mixed use. The entire area on the future land use plan is residential transition. So that includes the primary use, small lot and single-family detached homes, secondary uses for civic and institutional uses, and one of the key points I'd point out is the description. Limited amounts of local retail and services may be appropriate in certain locations as needed to support the primary land uses. So as Ms. Wilcox mentioned, wanting to open a bodega, a small convenience store for the neighborhood, located within the neighborhoods, they don't have to leave the area for those retail services. Here's the proposed site plan. Not necessarily tied to the site plan, she still has to go through building permits to get the building upgraded to the commercial standards, install the parking as per our parking standards between planning and engineering. But this is just a conceptual plan of what she has with the residential unit in the back, the commercial use up front on Webster Avenue. And based on the consistency with the comprehensive plan as part of that transitional residential area, staff supports the request. I'd be pleased to answer any questions before or after the public hearing.
What is the present zoning there now?
R1A.
For this, for the whole area?
Yes,
R1?
R1A,
Okay.
but it's single family, but it does allow the accessory dwelling unit.
And the parking that you have currently shown will suffice for what is,
Normally, we wouldn't have a curb cut that wide.
mhm.
She'll have to work with engineering on that. If not, she could rotate the parking 90 degrees and just use a smaller curb cut and have parking next to the building for the residents in the back and parking up front for the retail space. It's such a small retail space, it would only require 2, maybe 3 parking spaces.
What's the size?
Like about 24 by 38.
Is that the existing building? When you look at it now, there's a building there. Is that the building that's going to be used?
I believe it'll have an
Yeah.
addition on that, correct?
Yes, it's gonna have addition on it.
Okay, but that is the building?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am, okay. All right, unless you guys, well, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing here at 4:12. And I do have BK Gamble to speak. How are you, BK?
I'm good. So,
You want to introduce yourself?
yeah, I'm BK Gamble, and do I need to say anything else?
No, ma'am, you're good.
Okay, okay. Carlotta asked me to come to support her, and I've known about this since she's been talking about it. I've walked through the property, and I think it's a really exciting thing to do, to put in place in the Doyle community. I think it would help to revitalize the area. And so I'm really excited about it. I really support it, and I support her. So I think it's going to be neat because it would add, bring the community together, add culture to it. She's going to be I think she's going to sell groceries and some prepared foods. So I just, I'm just excited about it, that someone's trying to come in and do something, because there was, like you said before, another restaurant that was going to be there and would have brought other people in, and it didn't happen.
Thank you. Any questions, any comments, any?
I actually think it's a really great idea. It's, like you said, just bringing community. I don't mean, I mean community in the sense of people one-on-one, interacting with one another and having a common place and,
And all different cultures, we get to know each other.
yes. My only concern is the parking issue, but,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I said, she will have to go through a building permit to upgrade that building to meet commercial standards, and that'll include the building remodel and the parking. That'll have to be consistent with the zoning code.
So there were no notices and there was no neighbors? The notices that
We
were
sent out 32 letters, and we did get one email back in opposition.
One?
One.
And can you tell me where that was located?
It's in the packet.
Let's see. $229 West Barnett.
oh, there it is.
Any discussion? Any questions, any comments? Nothing?
I'll move to approve.
My only concern with this is, the beginning of retail, coming into the neighborhood like that. Since there weren't many comments, I guess there was one opposition, but
Right. So for the neighborhood, I know in years past, there used to be more small commercial
correct.
places throughout the neighborhood. I can't speak to if any of them were actually legal at that time. I know the zoning's changed a number of times over the years in the history of this neighborhood. But again, the comprehensive plan does acknowledge that in certain locations, obviously with the community's interest in mind, that there are limited commercial for that C1 local commercial to be considered at least. So,
And there's already commercial a block and a half away, so.
right.
Right? I mean, it's pretty
Go
close.
back real quick. So yes, on Pascal, there is some commercial properties. The light blue is the back portion of the city yard. You have the Doyle Center kind of across Webster and across Barnett. So there is a lot of community activity in this area already.
So the mixed-use area is already zoned mixed-use, and there could be some,
Yes,
even if the restaurant doesn't go in, there could be some commercial there?
that's correct.
All right.
I'll make a second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let's move on to 3B. We have the 3B applicant here.
Just 1 second.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Getting our voting recorded. This is an ordinance to change the zoning from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Medium Density Residential on Aransas Edition subdivision, lots 1R, 2 through 5, 6R, 7R, 8 through 10, 11R, and 12R, generally located north of Travis Street at Aransas Lane. The commission approved the replat on a couple of these lots last month, and then applicants requesting a zoning from R1 to R2. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Strachey.
Bruce Strachey, 369 Indian Springs, Kerrville, Texas. Basically, this was platted in 1986 and never built out. It was on the original plat. It specifically says townhome construction only. That is an R2 zone use. It's not our intention, and the builders that we're talking to are not talking about doing townhomes, but we're trying to return this back to the way it was originally platted because these lots are tiny. The smallest lots are 40 by 100, and those lots have about 45 feet of utility easements, 35 feet on the west, 10 feet on the east. And so we're trying to get to where we can use R2's small lot, single family, or patio homes in that, in there. And so basically, we're just going back to how this was originally intended in 1986 when it was originally platted. It was 15 lots, and as Drew noted, we replatted it last month to 12 lots. So we've actually reduced the number of units. Number of lots, I should say, excuse me. Very good.
So the current zoning is R1. There we go. The future land use plan actually shows this area as part of the mixed use that carries from downtown all the way down to the intersection of Broadway and Water Street. And we, as you can tell from the zoning, we haven't had any mixed use interest moving west beyond Water Street. You can see the mixed use zoning along Broadway, but that next half block on Park Lane and west is all zoned R1, or primarily zoned R1. The entertainment mixed use does allow for residential use, so it would still be consistent with that. They're not apartments, but with the smaller lots would fall into that workforce housing category as a secondary land use. Here's the revised plat that was approved last month showing the 12 lots. So Travis Street is on your right, the north end of the property along Everett Street. There will be a private drive that connects to F Street, kind of bottom center of the page, as well as a connection to Travis Street.
This where the old railroad track went?
Yes. And staff supports the request, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions before or after the public hearing.
Well, since we do have quite a few speakers, let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. It looks like 4:20. We have several speakers. Donna Cook. Your name just had to be at the top of the list.
Okay. You asked if anybody had any questions. I do have a question.
Did you introduce yourself, ma'am? Just
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
courtesy.
Donna Cook. I live at 415 F Street. I live on it used to be a dead-end street, and we were at the end of that quiet dead-end street before they put this road in, a big concrete road that goes all the way up one side of us and then in front of us. And he's right, it is very narrow. I don't see how there's going to be much room for houses on the other side. It's so narrow. But my question was, Quinlan Creek is at the back of that property. And he was saying something about 12 to 15 houses. Is that what? 12 houses? I was wondering how far back he's going to go because that Quinlan Creek has flooded before. And also, it's more likely to flood because of the concrete pavement and the houses, the roofs, because there won't be any grass to absorb the rain, and it'll flood over onto the neighboring properties. So I was wondering, I know 12 houses down there, the ones that are closest to Quinlan Creek, are very probably going to flood. And so how close are you going to get to Quinlan Creek with your houses? Just concerned for the people that are buying them, and also concerned for the neighbors, which is me, one of them, that it's going to flood our property because the grass can absorb the storm water, and it goes over into the neighboring properties.
Well, do you have any thoughts on that, Bruce, before we have Drew?
How do you spell your last name, Bruce?
STRACKE. And did you have another question, Don? I can answer that now.
Go, I'd like for you to answer it. Thank you. Thank you about the, yeah.
So we have construction drawings that we submitted to the city, signed by the city engineer, approved by the city's consulting engineer, approved by my engineer, that shows the stormwater flow. And staff has copies of that. I'm glad to share them. So that has been studied. We did a stand-up curb on the western side, which is the low side of stormwater flow. We put a swale across the end of F Street. All that water is directed to Quinlan, and it's water off of our site. And to be honest with you, most of the water comes from South Street and Everett from the city.
I just thought of another question. How much more soil, land are you gonna put in there to build that up? Because if you build it up higher, that makes me think it's gonna run off onto the neighbors.
We're not importing any material.
Okay,
We're using the material we're finding on the site.
okay, thank you.
The responsibility for, I mean, this is a replat approval. The responsibility for the development of the site and mitigate any issues that would affect the neighboring property is the city's. The city has to monitor what the builder does.
Thank you.
And I am sure that, Drew can address this, but I'm sure it's just like any neighborhood, when a new development is built, they're gonna have to deal with all their water runoff, all of their, everything.
Are y'all gonna come out and inspect it to make
Yes,
sure
so
that we don't
as-
have those problems?
As Mr. Strachey mentioned, the engineering plans have been approved. City Engineering Department, we do a third-party review for drainage and stormwater, and that was approved. As it goes through construction of the road and the infrastructure, our engineering department will inspect it. Once the building permits are issued, our building inspectors will be inspecting those throughout the project.
Thank you so much. All right. We live next to the property, as I said, on F Street. That was a dead-end street before they put the concrete road in. They've been working on it the last couple of weeks. A few days ago, I think they were pretty much finished with it. But we lived on a quiet dead-end street for many years, and now there will be traffic and noise and people may be parking in front of our house, I don't know, especially if it's apartments, because I don't know where they're gonna,
Can't be apartments, right, Bruce? No, ma'am.
I thought that's what we were here
No,
for.
single-family homes, possible townhouse, but no, it has to be, it's not zoned for apartments.
Oh, not apartments,
No, ma'am.
duplex. We're talking about duplex?
No, ma'am.
Lots aren't big enough for
It has to be single? Is it single
single-family.
family apartments? Okay.
Not apartments.
What is this meeting about then?
This
Well,
meeting is about changing, the zoning change is not changing the number of houses, it's not changing the size of the houses.
Okay,
It's changing the lot sizes, which addresses setbacks, which, mitigates being able to put the houses on the lots. So
Okay.
we're not changing what can be there, we're not changing the number that can be there.
I thought it said, zoning from an R1 single-family residential to R2 medium density.
But it's still
density
single
residential.
family.
But you're still just only talking about the size of the lot, not
Yes.
the, okay, that
Yeah.
is kind of a relief. But are you changing it from smaller lots or bigger lots to,
The lot sizes actually aren't changing.
Yeah, the lot sizes aren't, it's the setback requirements on the lots that are changing. They're, otherwise, where the setback might have been 10 feet, it might be 5 feet now, depending upon where they build. But the number of houses that they're gonna build, the number of single-family dwellings they're gonna build on there is not changing, and the lot sizes are not changing. It's the setback requirements that change when you go from R1 to R2.
okay. And it's too late was there a meeting about this being done? I mean, the houses being,
Well,
I
Yes,
can't
this
oppose.
This is the
It
meeting.
was done in 80 what?
86.
86.
86.
Yeah,
Oh, my
so it's been
goodness.
approved for that long.
Okay.
Just missed it.
Missed it by a week.
This is changing the whole neighborhood of the whole character of our neighborhood. All the concrete buildings will affect the land and water in a negative way environmentally. The concrete road that they've already built and the houses will create a lot of impermeable cover, which will cause flooding in the neighborhood properties and potentially affect the stormwater quality and cause sedimentation in the adjoining Quinlan Creek, which is already on the TCEQ, which is the Texas Commission Environmental Quality 404D list. And this could potentially make things worse for the Guadalupe River. So replacing all the grass next to us with roofs and roads will cause stormwater and the stormwater to drain quicker. Our property, and especially the 3 houses across from us whose backyards are next to Quinlan Creek, are down gradient. And by replacing more than 50% of the land cover, which is probably going to be way more than 50%, with buildings or roads, it will create problems such as flooding and hurt the rivers environmentally. That's just.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. We're not happy, and in case you didn't know, I am opposing
I understand that,
everything
yes,
to do
ma'am.
with it.
Kenneth?
I'm Kenneth Sproul. My house is at 125 Travis Street. And I used to live there back in '78 from then on. And there were 3 other gentlemen that owned that property at that time, and they all wanted to build on it. And they were never worked with to where they could build on it because nothing could be figured out. And he says the lot size are the same. I understood or was told that the lots, 2 of the lots were eliminated so that they could get the full 50-foot on the lots. So I think the lots were changed.
We reduced the number of lots. There were 15, there are now 12.
And the addition is named Aransas, I can't remember, Aransas something. Well, where is that? Aransas, there's an Aransas Lane there. And my understanding that the others had to fight because there was an easement that the city was going to put in a street along the, I don't know, my directions would be the east side, that it was going to run in and tie into Aransas Lane across Travis Street. And that would be a city street so that those dead-end streets would hit that, or it could go off on F Street. And that would eliminate all the traffic on G Street. And luckily, the bridge washed out on this creek down there on Travis Street, so that eliminated a lot of the traffic. And I think you said there was 45 feet easement on part of that?
There's a total of 45 feet of utility easements.
And that would be on the east side?
No, 10 feet on the east, 35 on the west.
And that leaves enough room to put houses in there?
About 1,500 square feet of buildable footprint.
Well, I understood that the street was going to go in on the east side, but it never has developed. And why would you call it that addition if it isn't along that street? Since it is going to be eliminated now, they couldn't put it.
Well, we really don't have control over what they name it.
Address that.
Yes, go ahead, if you'd like. Would you like Bruce to address that, sir?
No, I'm sure it's going to go through one way or the other. But who owned that property? That's the thing, that the street was going to be put on. The railroad, when that railroad went through there, my understanding that they were going to let the property owners that next to it buy that property. But Shriner College evidently got all theirs and got it along the side of mine. And that,
I understand what you're saying, and what we're doing here, the property is already platted.
right,
Yes.
and, I didn't even know about that.
Well, it
You
was
said
platted
you
in
missed
1986,
Yeah.
according to what information we provide. So it's been platted.
But why weren't we given a letter that, we had to be here for that plat meeting? I never received one.
Did you live there in 1986?
Yes.
I didn't live here.
And plats don't require
Yeah,
public
plats don't,
notice.
this is a change in the plat. Plats don't require a public hearing. This is a change in the plat.
Well, it seemed like
Or
it would
zoning,
have to
not the
be
plat, changing the
zoned,
zoning.
before you platted it, or
But
you would
It
know
was
if the
already-
plat.
It was already
Zoned.
zoned R1, back in 1986, correct, Bruce?
R2.
R2.
R2 before it was platted for town.
And that's why they couldn't get it, because they couldn't get the distances, 30 feet from the front and 15 feet from the back. That's what mine was, 30 feet from the front and 15 from the back. Now, this is reducing it to 14 feet on the carports, or, and the car.
35 feet on the drive side, so it'll be larger than yours. It'll be 10 feet. On the other side.
10 on the back side.
It depends on which way the house is faced, but the garage side will be 35 feet, and the other side will be 10 feet.
And my understanding that the driveways are gonna be for 2 vehicles only, is that correct?
2 parking spaces are required for each dwelling.
And to make it, they have to build a 2-story, and part of the car is gonna be under the building?
No, a very nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath, which has nothing to do with the zoning, will fit on 1,500 square feet with a 2-car garage. So they don't fit. I spent almost 3 years working on this project.
We need to move on, sir. We have some other speakers.
Okay, I'm trying to remember what else here. Curbs are gonna be just on the one side, and that is a private drive?
It's a private access drive, yes.
Is it gonna be gated,
No.
gated each end?
No.
So traffic will go through there?
It's, well, you'd be trespassing if you're not invited. It's private. Just like driving on your driveway would be trespassing, so.
So there'll be a sign that that's a private drive?
I'm-
People won't know?
I'm gonna sell it to somebody else and they'll put up whatever sign they wish.
Well, I guess I have that. I can't figure out why the city didn't work with the other owners, and that this group that have it now were able to do it. And,
Can't answer that question. It's really not part of what we're trying to do today.
well, I don't want it
You
zoned.
can, if you, I mean, I don't know that that means anything. You can talk to the city. I don't know what happened in 1986 and why, who couldn't do what. But today, we're dealing with the rezoning of the property from R1 to R2, which doesn't change anything about what's gonna be there.
Okay, so if we are against it, and this meeting, the utilities are already in, the concrete's in the private drive, there's no stopping it. So why did we have this meeting?
Well,
They can,
Again, it's purely setbacks. So currently, as it's zoned, with the lots that are there, they can come in and build a house on every lot, right now, just as it is. So it's already approved. So if you're in opposition to anything being built there, it's too late for that. It was too late for that in the 80s. So all we're doing today is a setback issue, not whether or not they can build on it.
Okay, if this is for the zoning, and the zoning, the old zoning eliminated the other people from building there,
It doesn't
why
eliminate.
doesn't
It just changes what the size of the house and
could have
where
been the
it's
old people
located
wanted to
on
do
the lot.
something different and they didn't, and they couldn't do what they wanted to do, so they decided not to build. But I do believe this is a change in zoning. Does this go to city council?
yes, it does.
Yeah, see, there will be, whatever this decision that we make here today, this will go to city council for public hearing, and you'll be able to go to city council and express your opposition to this at that time. We're just making a zoning, we're we're not, putting a stamp telling them they can do. We're changing, we're dealing with changing the zoning, and then city council will have to make the decision on whether they approve what we say. So you will have an opportunity to go to city council.
Well, my last.
This is an information hearing. This is why we're doing this. People that live in the area, they're coming to this meeting and getting the information. And then, you know, they can express their opposition to it, and then if they're still opposed to it after they get the information, you'll get a notice. City council, I don't know,
There's not a second notice.
there's
for
not a
city
notice
council.
sent out, but if you watch if you look at the city council's agendas on the city council website, or you just call and you say, I wanna know when this is going before city council, and they'll be able to give you a date where you'll be able to go and express your opposition.
Well, I don't have a computer, I don't have a smartphone, and,
But you do have a phone.
And it's in the paper.
Land-
It will also be in the paper, but you do have a phone, and what you can do is you can call the city secretary, and you can say, I wanna know when this
Chairman.
is gonna be on council.
It'll be on the April 8th city council meeting.
Second Tuesday in April.
well, going back to the.
Sir, I need to move on.
Well, this is part of the.
Yeah, I know, but you've already more than doubled the time you're allowed to speak. We try to keep everybody speaking 4 minutes.
Well, did the city own the lot on that easement?
I don't have that answer,
Is that on y'all's deed?
and that's
that the
not part of
city
what we're
owns
trying
it?
to do today.
And did y'all buy it from the city?
I did not buy any land from the city.
Okay,
Thank you. Yes, sir,
Sorry,
thank you.
I went over.
No, you're good, but you will still have an opportunity. Now I have Rebecca.
My name's Rebecca Gramatakakis, and I've lived in Kerrville for over 55 years. I bought this house in 2016 and was explained to me that I'm in a 500-year floodplain. The FEMA map has unchanged in my area since 2011. I did have fencing put around my house, and I put it on the inside of my property because of the trees around it. I have spoken to this realtor. Never once did he ever tell me what he was going to build, but he did have me split the cost to have those trees removed before his construction. I do understand that all of the concrete, as Ms. Cook said, is going to cause problems because I am less than 500 feet now from what's going on. I mean, I am this far. And I want to know, when you change this zoning, what it's going to do to my property value, because when you come and see my house sits like this, and everything is going to drain and flood me out. And I want to know what y'all are going to do to protect me and my home, because I am in the 500-year floodplain. I am still in there, and so is part of this property that's being built. And I am very concerned for my home and my own well-being. The city of Kerrville has a floor plan administration on their webpage that I read today, talking about the implementing of flood plan designated for restrictions outlined in the floodplain management ordinance, and the purpose of this ordinance is to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare to the minimum public and private losses due to floodplain conditions. Are y'all gonna protect me? Is this going to be notified? I mean, are you gonna have this in writing when I get flooded out because of what's being built over here? And then the zoning, how much is the setback going to be on my property? How much am I supposed to have between this property and mine? Are they going to build a private fence between us to protect me, any kind of wall? Is anything at all going to be done to protect my property? Or do I just come and give my grievance and you give him the zoning and I get whatever's left over? I had a lot planned, but I understand it doesn't matter now. We weren't part of the building, we don't have any choices. All we can do is say we're opposed to the zoning. And I don't even know if that's gonna stop anything. Because of what's being built and where it's being built at, I am in danger now, and so is my home. And I want the city to know that. And I don't want y'all to come out and see my property and see how I slant completely down from what's being built next door.
Again, as we discussed before, this is the responsibility of the city when they come in, whoever builds these houses, when they come in for their engineering plans, their building plans and everything, it's the responsibility of the city to protect the neighbors, to protect anything that they're doing from affecting your property. And that's something you take up with the city.
And how do I do that?
Well,
I mean, now it's already done. They've already given them the permits. They've already started the construction. The concrete's already laid. How do I know that the city's going to
So
protect me
there's
or
no-
have anything built in between us to help me?
The plans for those were done by a professional engineer and reviewed by city engineering staff as well as a third-party engineering. So those plans have been approved and meet the floodplain standards, so that they cannot increase any flow onto your property or any adjacent property.
So them laying concrete will not damage my property. Them leaving the huge gap between us with no kind of drainage at all to protect my property has all been in the engineering and are in the plans to have me protected? There's a gap between us now where the concrete is in my property, and that's just going to flow into my property now.
I'm not an engineer, so I don't review those plans, but yes, they've been reviewed and approved.
And so what is the plan that your contractors are gonna do to protect my property? Are you putting in drains over there to between us? Are you putting in walls?
We have done it as the engineers have advised us. The city's approved it. Two different engineering companies and the city engineer have all reviewed it and approved it. We've added a curb that didn't exist before. The water just flowed across. Now it's gonna go to Quinlan Creek. And if you go look at the way everything's surveyed out, all the trees that you and I cut down are on your property. None of those trees turned out to be on my property, which I paid for.
And, no, well, that's not quite. And
It
how
is
much
true.
of y'all are on my property now?
None.
And all of the construction
on
and
your
the damage
property.
that you've done between the two properties now?
Well,
Who's gonna
it-
clean all of that up now?
The contractor will clean before he gets his final payment.
But there'll be no French draining. There'll be nothing at all to protect me.
No French drain.
So I'm opposed to this. I'm 100% opposed.
thank you, ma'am. And again, you'll have an opportunity to speak to city council, who really makes the final decision.
Okay.
And I do want to emphasize again, though, if you're opposed to anything being built there, that's already been decided. So you can go to city council if you would like to, but this was approved in the 80s. Okay? So I think it's important to understand that.
Yeah, basically what we're doing here is we're discussing setbacks. And not because, if we weren't here today, they were still gonna build houses on that property.
Correct.
And how much of a setback can he have now between me and him, if you approve this?
35 feet.
That's a lot.
It's barely 5.
35 feet from your house, from my property line to the front of any house that gets built there.
But there's a fence between us. There's not 35 feet between us.
There's
The vertical
There's
construction.
about 10 feet between the concrete and your fence. There's about 5 feet from the concrete to the property line.
15.
5.
But it's talking about where your house is, not where the property
house
line
is gonna be
is.
35 feet away from the property line. Your fence is like 5 or 8 feet inside your property.
Oh, yeah, let's go to, is there a Karen? Is it Karen? Ma'am?
No, I'm sorry. My name is Karen Chandler. I own the property with my husband at 410 F Street. Over half of his road and thing goes right all down my property because of the way my property goes. Okay, that's not what I have a problem with understanding. I went in and looked up R2 because that was what was asked for, was
Yes,
the
ma'am.
change between R1 and R2. Okay? Because Bruce had said all along it would be single-family dwellings, because there's not a lot of room. And what's going to do, even the drive that he did for going in, he brought it out onto F Street in front of my property, not on the property that he owns. It's actually sitting on F Street. Okay, but When I look up R2, what I understand and what it says in black and white under R2 says that, you know, it's still one building. It can't be a big apartment building, but it can be a duplex, triplex, or fourplex under R2. That's what it's telling me, okay? Bruce is telling me single family, but he's selling it to somebody else to
Hold
do.
on, you wanna address that?
Yes.
Yeah.
The R2 allows for single family with an accessory dwelling unit, townhomes, or duplexes. However, the duplex lot must be 6,000 square feet, and these lots are
These
not
are
that
not.
large.
So they will not be allowed to have duplexes. It can only be single-family homes and
Okay,
townhomes.
then I don't understand what the thing is about the change. If it's
Again,
limited
it's
to that from a
purely for a
size.
setback.
Setbacks.
It's not changing whether or not a home can be built there or not. It's purely
No, I know a home can be built there, and I
setback.
have no problem with somebody
Yeah.
making money on their land, okay? But room-wise, you know, for people to park, for, of course, the traffic, you know, and everything. But a person has a right to make a profit on their property, okay? But I don't need a college campus there either. And that's what scares me when it said R2 when I went and looked it up.
It won't be a
Well,
college
that's a
campus.
that's a generalization.
I think you're pretty safe.
That's a
Well, you
generalization
know,
of what.
we've had the property for 35 years there.
Right.
When it used to be almost a college campus there, because when Travis was open, the traffic going all the way through, they had a ball with it. Believe me, I lived through that, because I've had the property for over 35 years,
Well,
so.
you're correct what R2 allows, but there's also conditions on what, if you want to do something on R2, and like Drew said, you can't build a duplex on a lot that's less than 6,000.
Because of the size of it, regardless
there will
of
be
the
no
zoning, that's what you're
duplexes.
telling me.
It will be
Right.
single-family home.
Okay,
It could be a single-family townhome, but it still will just be a single-family home.
okay. Well, that is a lot of my problem with it, when I looked it up and it says it could be that much.
And that's
but
exactly
There's not that
why
much
this-
space there.
That's why we have, you're getting information, you're asking questions, and we try to get your questions answered.
And I do have a concern with flooding with the way that the stuff is too. I lived through the last flood there, and the lady is wrong about 500 year. They changed it to 100 year after the flood. Because we got the paper. Well, then yours is, they sent us a letter saying it was 100 when we had to get our church for 100.
You have more 100 on yours.
Oh, I have 100, she has 500. Because I know mine, and that's what scares me with all this concrete.
Elevation.
And no grass too. And the way that the drive comes out, because it's gonna, we called the city, asked the city to come out and look, because we got concerned while they were working on it. So it's not like I've ignored this part of it
Yes, ma'am.
prior to this, because the property now that he has that he's on is higher than what it used to be. Because where they did out, they put the dirt, and it's actually higher. Because we used to mow that, a lot of that, because of keeping the fleas and everything off of our property. We used our tractor, we mowed it, just of our own accord over the years. It's actually higher all the way than what it used to be. And now, it not only is higher, and I've got pictures if you want to see them. We tried to print them out. I couldn't get them to print on the printer, so we brought the laptop. But it's coming out higher, probably 3-4 foot higher than what my property is. How much, honey? 2? Okay, well, it looks bigger now. Okay, and it may have been before. I'm sorry, but like I said, we have pictures. I'm not trying to lie. Okay, but he comes out and goes down like this, all in the front of where my property is there. The driveway being actually on F Street. He came out with his drive onto F Street, which makes it more in front of mine instead of on his property.
Well, F Street is the entrance into this development, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Right? That's the only entrance now. So I am concerned as far as flooding goes, somewhat too.
And
Okay,
Again, the
but my main
engineers
concern was,
will
like I
address
said, the
that.
four.
Save your laptop and take it to city council when they have the public
We
hearing.
will. Okay, but the property, the lot size is still gonna prevent the triplex, duplex, everything like that,
Right.
is what you're telling me,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Won't happen.
All right, good enough.
All right, Wilson.
I'm basically the same as my wife. I'm more concerned about the traffic that's gonna come in. And I was concerned about multiple people living in the same lot. If they could put duplexes in, then it's
Well,
adding more and more
we've solved that
people.
problem, they can't put duplexes in.
That's my biggest deal. Like I said, we're already gonna have more traffic. You know, we've been there 35 years, 36 years, and we was under the impression nobody would ever build on there. And that happened. I'm not mad about that. I just don't want flooded with traffic when that's a pretty quiet area. Matter of fact, I'm like 4 blocks out of downtown, I'm in the country. I'm not now.
It's really nice. I share your sentiments. I live in Comanche
30
Trace.
36 years, people says, how do you live there? We're in the country.
I have 300 acres right behind me that's beautiful. I walk out in my backyard and look out and I see deer and everything else, and
Back to the other, what my wife
I'm
was
sure that
talking
it's gonna
about.
get developed. but
I am
when
concerned about the way they done our drives there. My neighbors both got a drive right on the end of where they come out. And not only is it narrow there, which is what the city required him to do, it makes 2 big holes right there in our place. It's gonna be a water catch, plus it's gonna be a mud hole trying to get out of there. I gotta jump that much concrete when that mud settles. And he parks motorhomes on his side, I park work trucks on my side. But if I have my work truck in there and I go to back out, I'm gonna hit my bumper. The tires ain't gonna stop. They ain't gonna go up that mud. So hopefully we'll work something out on that, I don't know. I've had the city there twice. Well, I've called them 3 times and no answer on the last 3 times. They come out and looked at it twice and said it was too high. They took it down a little bit, then added concrete, so it's back to where it was. But my main thing is, I don't want 20 people living in one lot.
I don't think you're gonna have that problem.
And, I mean, I really don't want one person living, but.
I understand. I have one more, John?
Thank y'all for hearing me. I appreciate the opportunity and the efforts done for pay and for volunteers, so thank y'all. Seems like it's pretty much universally unpopular. If you look at the map y'all sent me, these are pretty tiny.
Yes, sir.
That's a lot of cars. And I am very concerned about parking there. I've been around for a long time, only been a resident for a few years, but it's family property that has been in my family for lots and lots of years. I remember when the Oilers used to do their training over on Shriner campus. Now, there's not too many people in Kerrville can remember that.
Be careful.
But I was here.
You're telling your age.
I am showing my age. Yes, sir. And half of my ancestors were women, but I'll try not to go over. Whenever we look at a place and we think about the changes that are proposed and that have been approved in the past that I didn't participate in, well, because it wasn't any of my business. I'm here today because I have grave concerns. And I think y'all see that from most everybody that's talking. We're taking a narrow street that doesn't handle any traffic except for us neighbors. And we're gonna put 15, okay, now it's gonna be 12. And it's gonna have 2 cars per. They're gonna end up parking other places because that's the way that things go. If you don't believe, you look out, and I know these aren't gonna be apartments, look out at the apartments on Legion Street. On Legion Street, people are parking on Legion Street because there's not enough parking at the apartments. Now, when the railroad used to go through there, and I do remember the tracks being there, so I've been here. There used to be a ditch that the railroad put in once they condemned the property, took the property, and built their railroad. That ditch was substantial, about 4 foot deep. Can't find it on any of the maps, but I'll tell you it was there because I was a kid and I trespassed. And I walked that property a lot. It was the wilderness. And that ditch took all the water. And there was a big hump there on Travis Street because the cars would go jump it, and some of y'all might have been teenagers that did that. That was when the bridge was still open on Travis Street, and you could zoom down through there. Now, the hump got taken down. The city said, don't worry, it's not gonna change any of the water flow. They put in the utilities in that stretch of the railroad property. And when they did that, that ditch that the railroad had in there was leveled out. About that same time, they took F Street, and by the way, I am at 415 F Street, and I'm sorry, I'll get there. They did cut down on F Street, I think as part of the water handling. I'm not sure, I was younger and they didn't explain it, but I can tell you that all the houses around me have flooded. Every one of them. Every single one of them. And city engineers approved all of the changes before. Now, they've approved stacking, packing, and racking houses. Okay, I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the parking, and I ask that y'all not approve this. That we limit this expansion and look back, because there is the possibility of going back and looking at the plots and seeing if they are going to have a detrimental effect to the area, to the environment, and to the residents that are already established there. Thank you.
You bet. That's the last of my speakers, unless anyone else wants to speak before we close the public hearing.
I did want to ask you, if you approve this, what does that setback do to my property?
You want to address all this, Bruce, before we
The
close
property
the public
lines stay
hearing?
the same.
Yeah, it doesn't.
The Chairman,
Setback is,
Property's the same.
the setback is based on where the houses can be built to the property line. Doesn't affect your property line at all.
Does it change where I can put a carport and?
No,
where I
ma'am.
can make
No, that's
changes on
your
what-
property.
No,
He's not touching anything on your
this has
property.
nothing to do with,
The R2 would only be for him?
Yes,
Not the
we're
surrounding?
not-
Only affects him, it
That-
does not affect you.
we're not changing the zoning where you
It
live.
does affect how close he can come to me. It changes the footage from here to here.
You're on the front, correct?
I'm,
Then
On
that's
the west,
saying,
Side by
we're on the
side.
west. She's on the west.
Martin, can you put the PowerPoint back up?
So. Perfect. Can I point?
Sure, sure.
For the audience, you guys don't mind.
I got you, Bruce.
So, Mrs. Grammatikakis is down here, the Cooks are here, and Jerome and Kathy are here, all the way to E Street. On the west side, the water flows basically this way. Most of the water comes down Everett Street from South and Everett. The sheet flow across here,
Can you, hold on a second, Bruce. Drew, can you get your pointer and follow what he's saying?
Yes.
Start over, Drew.
okay, sorry. So, down is to the west, and the Grammatikakises, the Cooks,
They're up
And the
here where the
Chandlers.
pointer is.
are down where the pointers are.
Okay.
And the sheet flow goes from top to bottom, but most of the volume of water comes off of paved South Street and Everett Street and goes out to Quinlan, and it'll continue to do that. What the engineers and the city decided is that we would put a hump just off of Travis Street and repair the broken gutters along Travis Street, which has been completed, and keep the water that's in Travis Street no longer coming onto the property and onto Mrs. Grammatikakis' property. After that hump, there's a standing curb that runs all the way to Quinlan with a gap that creates a swale at F Street. And so the Cooks and the Chandlers mentioned about how it comes up where they're parking, so they have a mobile home and the Chandlers have some vehicles. And it comes, so to keep that swale at the height of the top of curb, because the curb dies into it, so the water can't come over the top of it. So the water continues down Quinlan. We haven't finished yet. We're adding dirt into the area now that the concrete was just poured on Tuesday. I can't put a tractor on it yet. Once it's cured, we'll fill that in as best we can. And I'm glad to speak with the Chandlers and the Cooks, which I have over this whole process about different items. And I've never turned down anybody's call. I've never walked away from anybody who's been talking to me on site. They all have my number. and some of them do call,
So Bruce, the water flow is going,
toward Quinlan Creek.
so it's
All of it,
following your arrow?
all of it goes to Quinlan.
Yes, it comes from
No
here.
water goes off of this site that's on the site. But that's why the concrete's up higher in that, where F Street goes in. We did concrete on F Street instead of asphalt, which is what the city asked for, because we thought it would last 20 or 30 years instead of 2 or 3. And if you look at the rest of F Street, the city should be embarrassed that it has not been repaved.
Yeah, we've only called about 500 times over the years for that.
Right.
Well, that was
So-
something else I wanted to point out. It's important
not
that
gonna
it's
repave
concrete
it.
is actually better than asphalt, if either one or water flow off.
So Bruce, there's no,
That's how we flooded before.
No, I know, and Jerome
And
told
they
me
flooded
back
our houses
in
completely, all three.
1983, I wanna say the chicken coop even got flooded, which is
Yeah.
actually in the 500-year flood.
Exactly.
so Drew, there's, Bruce, there's no access, your lots, there's no access from Travis Street.
Yes.
There
Yes,
is.
there
Yeah,
is,
there is.
there's access from Travis.
So
and
this
from
road
F
runs
Street.
all the way down, this private road runs all the way down the front of the property. And then there's an entrance coming in off F Street.
Off of Travis and F.
Okay.
And it looks like Everett also.
There's no access to the first 10 lots on Everett.
And all the water flow is not to Quinlan Creek. We had flooding on our property that came off this railroad property.
Yeah, but
Because my
now we've-
understanding is
yeah,
any impervious cover, it increases the risk of property flooding.
And there didn't used to be a standing curb,
Right.
which I'm hearing tonight is higher than people wish it was. Which, according to the engineers, will carry all the water.
Well, just an observation, with the French drain at that corner between the fence line and the standing curb,
No,
help
you're
mitigate
talking,
some of the drainage coming that direction.
you're talking about less than a 10-foot patch of dirt. How much water is the French drain gonna catch? That's not,
Depends
that's,
on how much, wide the catchment is. 'Cause that
it's
whole-
less than
that whole
10
area
feet,
got a slope
it's
there.
less than 10 feet wide.
Right.
Because the uphill side of that 10-foot patch is a standing curb that is directing the water to Quinlan.
Thanks, Bruce.
I guess it could be
So-
angled to the street.
So the understanding.
And I'm not an engineer, I'm not licensed, I hire people to do that, professionals that the city hires their engineer, I hired my engineer and the city engineer, so I think we've covered the stormwater.
Yeah, I think we have.
And to understand the R2 is what you're saying is, and I'm just trying to get a visual on this. As it is with 1, he can only be this far from the road. If it's R2, he can be this far from the road. Is that what the changing of zoning?
No,
To
it's
simplify
Not that
it.
simple.
No, you wanna answer?
I got you. The setback from we're gonna call the bottom of the page, the front of the property, for R2 is 25, or R1 is 25 feet from the property line. The driveway covers more than that. So the houses won't move any closer, whether it's R1 or R2. On the back of the property, R1 is 25 feet. R2 allows 15 feet. So the back of the home can move 10 feet closer to the property line.
The back property line.
And 10 feet if it's small lots anything.
Yes, sorry, 10 feet.
And it's a 10-foot utility easement. That's the thing, on the west side, there's 35 feet of utility easements. There's a sewer easement, there's an access easement, there's a water line easement. And on the east side, there's a 10-foot dry utility easement. So the setbacks are actually smaller than the easements. So the easements are really what restrict us. What we're really trying to accomplish with R2 is to be able to do garden homes so that we're 0 on one side, right on the property line, the side property lines, not the ones that touch these folks.
Right, not the people that live in the area.
The inter-neighborhood property lines. And then on the other side, we have 10 feet.
10 feet,
So the
right.
house has 10 feet around one side and no feet around the other side, instead of just 5 feet on either
Right.
side, because they're already small. So we're trying to make.
So everybody will have
the
one
massing-
side that has 10 feet.
Yes.
Trying to make the massing much better, so it's a more comfortable space, because they are tiny. They are all tiny. So, and I am not going to build the houses. It is possible that someone could buy them and build townhomes. I do not expect that. I went under contract today It's a builder who's built here in Kerrville. He builds wonderful single-family houses. He's very excited about the opportunity to build single-family houses on these lots. So I can't guarantee what he's gonna do.
No,
All I can
I get
tell you
you.
is he's a single-family builder. That's what he's told me he wants to do, and he went under contract today. I am not building the houses.
Okay, thank you.
I can show you on these lot numbers where there were houses before they went down to.
Oh, I know, further down Quinlan on the other side of Park Street. Yeah, absolutely. That's about a half a block away.
Yeah.
When we talk about these engineers, where do they go to college?
I can assure you that they're very stringent with their engineering. I develop in town and there's plenty that don't get developed because of it, so, but they do their due diligence.
There's one other issue that was brought up, that's a historical issue that's kind of interesting, but it does apply to not the zoning, but questions that were raised tonight, if I may.
Sure.
These neighborhoods on either side, we're talking about Block 83 and Block 85, J.A. Tybee edition. They were done in the 1800s. Interestingly enough, they were done right after J.A. Tybee sold the right-of-way to the railroad. And part of Block 85, which is the east side, included a 40-foot width for Aransas Avenue. And it's on the plat. It's on volume 1, page number 3. And so what happened is, when they surveyed it, Aransas Avenue at Block 85 went through part of what land J.A. Tybee had already sold to the railroad. And so today, the city has a public right-of-way that's about 15 feet wide east of our property, in the back of Alice and the Price's property on the other side.
And you can,
Their backyards look like they come to our property, but they don't. The city owns another 15 feet there that people have just overtaken over the years. And so there is a public right-of-way there that's 15 feet wide. I don't know what's going to happen with it. It's not on my property. It's to the east of my property.
So it's between your property and some of the people that live there.
Yeah, but I don't believe any of them came tonight. It's folks on the eastern side, not the western side.
Okay.
That was the point I was trying to point out.
Yeah, no, it's a great.
And now they're putting houses on that
No, the
property?
city owns property that's to the east.
it's still to the east.
It's not
of
this property.
It's not my property.
Well, I thought the railroad went all the way through, and the railroad gave it to the cities. They donated a lot of that land to the cities.
Not in this case.
We're gonna close
College got it all.
close the public hearing. Everybody's had their say, right? Again, you will have an opportunity, no matter what decision we make here, you'll have an opportunity. This will go before city council. I think it requires is it two public hearings or one, Drew?
One public hearing,
Public hearing.
2 readings.
Yeah, so you will have an opportunity, you know.
And they're gonna be single-family houses, one way or another.
Right.
It's all about.
Correct. And again, that's what I want to say here is, we're not questioning whether anything is going to be built there. There is going to be something built there. We're only questioning about the setbacks. That's really basically all we're looking at. So there will be more than likely 12 houses built there. You just have to, it's the responsibility of the city to make sure that all the engineering and everything is done the way it's supposed to be done to protect the people that live in the area. I mean, we all face that. I face that everywhere we live. The requirements for new development, and that's, you know, honestly, it's just a property right thing. And
So there will never be a city street there, Aransas?
No. So we'll close the public hearing at 5:12. And unless anybody has any comments or questions about this issue, I will call for a motion on the zoning change from R1 to R2.
So the next meeting is April 8th?
Second Tuesday of April.
At what time?
6 o'clock. And you have the ability, you have the ability to contact your council members. There's a mayor and 4 council members. You have the ability to contact them and express your opinion on this before it goes to council. You have the ability to go up, sign up to speak and speak on this issue and express your opposition. Do I have a motion on 3B?
I'll move to approve.
Have a motion to approve. We have a second. We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, this motion passes. Thank you for being here, expressing your concerns, and just go to city council and express what your opinions are. If you have any questions, talk to the city. All right, we're gonna move on to 3C.
Thank you.
Oh, I can see the little. Oh, yeah.
Put that bridge back on, Travis. That was a good jump.
It was a.
Yes.
I remember.
Get all 4 tires off the ground.
Yep.
Okay, Drew, 3C.
3C is an ordinance to amend the land use table and the concept plan for a planned development district ordinance 2019-22. Total of approximately 264.22 acres is defined in ordinance 2019-22. Generally located southeast of the intersection of Farm to Market Road 783, Harper Highway, and Interstate 10 adjacent to and north of Holdsworth Drive. So this one is one of the few times the city brings an application for zoning before the commission. We're actually just cleaning up some of the language in the concept plan and the land use plan. Ultimately, nothing is changing on the zoning, the concept plan for the zoning districts or the land use table. So if you see the little red boxes, this is the original concept plan from the 2019 ordinance. One, we left draft on there after it was approved. But 2, you can see the descriptions of the commercial districts on the right-hand side. We're removing those kind of sub-descriptions, if you will, so that it will just say commercial, blended, residential, and then the communications piece and the open space. I'll go into why here in just a moment. So here they are side by side. The commercial shows commercial district, commercial with live, work, and efficiency apartments. The blended said blended transition from commercial to townhomes and apartments. Residential said modern residential mix. On those subdescriptions, most of those do not exist in the land use table. So it was a little confusing to the public, to some of the developers, our legal team, our planning team. The land use table has the similar descriptions. Residential similar to proposed R2, because when this was originally in place, we were close to adopting the new zoning code. So it's crafted after the new zoning code, but now that we're a few years past, these descriptions don't quite fit. So we're just taking the sub-description out of those. So now the districts will be residential, blended transition, and commercial. And then here's the first page of the land use table. The biggest thing to note, and where some of the confusion started, somewhere, there we go. Thank you, Martin. The apartment, our zoning code actually refers to them as dwelling multifamily. So on the apartment line, you can see apartments are not permitted. It's actually just a reference so that whoever's looking for apartments will go to dwelling multifamily on the next page, where they are permitted in the various districts. But by keeping those descriptions up top, it was just kind of confusing. In one place we call it apartments, one place we called it multifamily dwelling. So the new land use table, again, that top row just takes those sub-descriptions away. But the concept plan is not changing. The actual permitted and conditional uses within those districts are not changing.
But you're not adding any additional uses?
Correct.
Or removing any?
That's
It's
correct.
the same plan, it's just, you're just cleaning up.
Yep, just cleaning up that language.
for the new ordinance?
I know Mike and I had a discussion about it with, when Bluewood came through for those apartments that are going up, or dwelling multifamily that are going up. Just misleading when one says apartments in the land use table. We don't call them apartments in the zoning code, we call them multifamily dwellings. So just trying to clean that up. I know Bluewood's attorneys had the same question as we were going through entitlements and permitting. But we told them we'd come back after the fact and clean everything up so that it was clear in the future as to what we're doing. And with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions before or after the public hearing.
Anybody have any questions before we open the public hearing? It's pretty simple, I think. Okay, we'll open the public hearing at 5:18, 5:19. And I do have a couple of speakers. Cynthia,
Hi, Cynthia Henley at 119 Morris Road. I don't understand what exactly y'all are trying to do. It's not making sense,
That's fine.
actually.
That's fine. Go back to the concept plans.
Because you said something about, you call it multifamily dwelling, but then you also called it an apartment.
Right.
what they're changing.
So,
I know, but he said apartment, and then he was like, well, but we call it multifamily. So is it an actual apartment building?
they are one and the same from the zoning
Okay.
code. It's just difference in name. So the districts that allowed multifamily dwellings, the commercial district and the blended transitional, the red and the orange.
Where is that in relation to Morris Road?
So Morris
orange you
Road
said?
is down here.
Mm-hmm. So the
So
orange does what?
this lot does allow for multifamily and some commercial. It already does, and it still will in the future. So we're actually not changing any of those land uses.
Okay. Then I guess I don't have any questions. I just didn't really understand, and I've never really owned property where I had to receive anything like
Right.
a letter. So I just wanted to know if there was something that I needed to address.
Understandable. No, since
Okay.
we're not changing any of the actual base zoning, just cleaning up
Just
some
how
of
it's
that language.
described.
Correct.
Okay, how do I get access to all this stuff?
I can get you a copy.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you so much.
And that's exactly why you get noticed and why we have these hearings, so you can have your questions answered.
Thank you.
All right, I have Rose.
My name is Rose, and I'm calling,
Can you push it down a little bit so you don't have to stand on you? There you go.
and is that all I need to do to give my name?
Yes, ma'am. That's fine.
Yes, so, you know, so where we're living right now, there's not too much, around us, and now that there will be, and you mentioned that you have engineers, doing their work. So my question is this city property and you're wanting to sell, or?
No, ma'am, this is private property.
Mhm.
The city did file the case just to clean up the ordinance so that the property owners didn't have to do that. But it is private property. I think there's 3 or 4 different property owners now collectively across this planned development district. But they're gonna still continue with their development plans.
Okay, so their intention is to sell it, right? To,
Some of them may sell it, some of them may develop it.
Okay. Okay, and I guess I take it that their engineers are at work, you know, making sure that, you know, wells don't get contaminated, or, you know, you know, those kind of needs. And,
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
The city engineers will review whatever engineering plans the owners submit, make sure that they meet all the codes and requirements and have no issues with adjacent property owners in any way.
Or other issues. Okay, so in other words, we can trust you. So some of us that are like on Morris, or some of the other areas, we're not on city property, we're on county property.
Right.
So are you still taking consideration of that too, or are we on
Yes.
our own? You
No.
know, that's.
The engineering, particularly the drainage and stormwater, is consistent with state law. So that's regardless if it's in the city or outside the city. Any development outside of the city limits, we do not review. Any development inside the city limits, we do review.
Okay, that's my main, question right there. So you just got done saying, that only what involves that whole, the city property only.
Right.
So, so being that some of us have wells, I mean, you're still gonna take that into consideration, or,
So any development that occurs in the city, we review those plans.
right, yes, but we're not in the cities,
Right, so anything that
so-
happened that your neighbors do, we do not review those plans.
Okay,
I
what
think,
my neighbors did, okay.
I
Okay,
think
but
we,
I'm not talking about, we're talking, I know the property, but how is, I mean, are we on our own to, I mean, yeah, I understand for what other neighbors are doing, but they also are living the way I'm living, okay? So now you're gonna put in new systems, and so is that gonna be an issue for us at all? Or is that being taken into consideration since it is not, city property?
Rose, are you worried about the water? What are you worried
Yes,
about?
yes,
Like
of
the
course.
drainage or your well?
Both, yes.
this whole development will be on city water and sewer. So they will not be,
Uh-huh.
they will not be putting any wells in the ground.
Correct.
To take any water out of the ground. They will,
Okay,
they will
and,
be, and
The
you-
same thing with, yeah, okay.
you will be, even though you, if you're adjacent, anybody that is in the area adjacent to this property, city engineers are gonna be, will be making sure that whatever's developed in that property doesn't have any adverse effects on the surrounding.
I know,
people.
because, I just read an article from San Antonio that, Leonard the Leonard developers, they're gonna be draining into, the waste water into creeks. And, so Town Creek is just right there, and I'm here thinking.
They're not gonna drain wastewater into the creek.
I'm learning that the creek, everybody has a piece of the creek.
Right.
And, so,
Now, any of these developments would be on the
water
centralized
and
city
sewer.
sewer.
There'll be no, there'll be no water, wastewater drained into the creeks.
okay, right, okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else? All right, we're gonna close this public hearing at 5:25. Any comments or anything before we deal with 3C? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amendment of the land use table.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right. All right, we'll move on to 4A.
Martin, can you advance it for me? There we go. So this item is more or less a workshop item, consistent with one of the action items in the Kerrville 2050 plan, ensure that development services, processes, and existing codes and ordinances are not impediments to development and redevelopment. So one of those that we've been looking at is an update to the subdivision code. I'm going to go through some of these adjustments. The subdivision code, obviously you guys review plats, so you see bits and pieces of that. It'll be adopted by city council at a public hearing in city council, but the planning commission's not required to vote on it. So just a workshop so you guys can see what changes we're making. And so some of the things on the operational side of processing plats, fine tuning some of that process. There's a couple mentions of mandatory meetings that applicants must have with staff before they can apply for a plat. Most of our local surveyors know our process, know what they're going through, so they don't schedule those meetings. So we're recommending those are optional. We had an alternative procedure drafted when the subdivision code was updated, more or less responsive to some state law changes in 2019. And our contract consultant was trying to figure out a way to allow some more flexibility within the code and within the state law, both for staff and applicants as we're working through plats. But since then, most of the time we don't, well, I'll go in a little more detail. The platting process is set out in 4 steps. The adequate facilities plan, which is approved by engineering staff. Then the preliminary plat, which Planning Commission reviews. Civil construction plans, the detailed plans reviewed by engineering. And then the final plat, which is reviewed by Planning and Zoning Commission. Most of our projects, the adequate facilities plan and civil plat are submitted together. It actually helps staff review those together because we can see if I've got a water line plan somewhere, what is that actually connecting to on the lots? So most projects, those first 2 steps are actually brought in together. So we're actually recommending that we allow that rather than sign up for an alternative process. We're just going to make that standard code. The civil construction plans and the final plat typically are separate. So those will still be 2 separate steps since they're approved by separate departments. There's a couple conflicts within the code, duplicate submittal requirements, just cleaning some of that language up. I think one of the plats said as a prerequisite you had to have something turned in, and then it's also listed as a submittal. Well, if it's already been done, then you don't need to submit it again. So just cleaning up some of the procedural things. One of the projects I know you guys looked at for the Creekside Apartments, they deferred their civil infrastructure until after they record the plat. Through that process, we found several inconsistencies in the code. And one of the big problems they had, the code requires that they provide funding security at application. None of their banks would give them a bond or a letter of credit on something that, 1, hasn't been approved, 2, hasn't even been reviewed. So obviously that's a problem. So now we require the improvement agreement with the application, go through the final plat process. Prior to recording, they have to provide security. So after the Planning Commission approves it, then they can go to their bank or whatever else, come up with that security, and we can record the plat. And then we're recommending that the deferred infrastructure be limited to surface only, streets and sidewalks. Any water and sewer, electric, telecom, all has to be installed prior to recording. And the biggest reason for that, and I think it's really more of a fear factor, but if a developer walked away in the middle of a project.
I agree.
With platted lots, which are now able to be sold to the public, may or may not realize that they do or do not have water lines, sewer lines. The street's pretty obvious. But additionally, our staffing, our public works and utility department, we have the capacity to go pave a street if we needed to from scratch. We don't necessarily have the equipment to go lay a whole system of water lines and sewer lines.
Right.
So that would put the emphasis on the developer to install the underground utilities, and they can defer the paving until after the plat's recorded. We've had some legislative amendments in the past legislative session. The 2019 change in the law said that all plats and plans regarding subdivisions must be approved within 30 days or they are automatically approved. Last legislative session, they removed plans, like they realized the issue there. If we have a set of engineering plans that are incomplete and they're not approved in 30 days, they're automatically approved.
Right.
I think most of our engineers would agree they don't want plans approved if there's issues. So the adequate facilities plan and the civil construction plans, just changing our code to match state law, are not automatically approved after 30 days. Plats are still approved after 30 days automatically, but the infrastructure and engineering plans are not.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then the other big change from the last legislative session 2 years ago, state law now allows the governing body, city council, to grant authority to staff to approve any plat. We're not recommending that far. Still want P and Z to look at preliminary plats and final plats. But we are recommending that replats stay at the staff level. So those are platted lots, water, sewer, streets are all already in place. And there's just some adjustment to lot lines, whether that's splitting one lot into two, or like Mr. Strachey's, we're taking 15 lots and making it 12. Those would be approved at the staff level. Since the infrastructure is already in place, we're not changing anything major on those. Adequate facilities plan and civil construction plans, again, are engineering staff. Minor plats, staff already approves. We're just recommending that replats are also approved by staff. So that some of those smaller projects might move a little faster, not having to wait for the planning commission to meet.
So if staff approves a replat, that's done. Doesn't have
Correct.
to go to city council anyway.
Correct. Yeah, no plats go to city council.
Right, okay.
They stop at the planning commission except for those. So that would be the one new change, is adding replats to the staff approval. And that is it. Next step, we'll go to city council for public hearing and first reading, and then, of course, second reading following that. You guys have any questions?
Somebody's creative.
Yeah.
I was playing with AI this afternoon.
Where in that room is Bruce? I have no questions. I think those are good changes.
Agreed.
Pass that along to
Thanks,
city
Kevin.
council. For the comprehensive plan, we are meeting with the Downtown Advisory Committee on the 26th. They're going to review the draft downtown chapter. And I think I have 2 other chapters that I need to review and get comments back to Friesa Nichols. The engagement summary and the land use chapter. So eventually we'll pass those all back to you guys for review prior to adoption, give you guys plenty of time to look at them. Next meeting is scheduled for April 3rd. Do we have any cases for that yet? One case? Okay. One case, plats deadline is next week, so we'll see if we have any plats. And that is all I have today.
One thing I'll point out is that Drew and Steve have been very accommodating to me when I've gotten these packets, and I can't read them because they're so small. I request that they print me up some larger ones, and they always will, if you ever need one. And I go pick them up.
Yeah,
and I can go out and
absolutely.
pick-
If there's something you guys can't see, let me know.
I don't have anything else. All right, we're adjourned.
Okay.